Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jolene's Happy Time Craftcast. You've probably guessed I am indeed Jolene, and it is wonderful to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me, wherever that is. If you are listening in your car, or if you are live on Facebook, or Twitch, or LinkedIn, or Instagram, or YouTube, or any of the other places that we stream to live, thank you so much for being here. It is a gray day here in Minnesota, and it's actually snowing. Great big chunky flakes that are kind of melting before they hit the ground. But the change of seasons is upon us, and I'm actually pretty excited because we just concluded, as you might know, a pretty long and wonderful retreat season. If you were a part of retreats at Big Raven Farm, thank you so much. We had an amazing year. I think we had 24 retreats in 2024, and we are working on our calendar for 2025. So far, it looks like the number is about 26, 26 retreats next year. Everything from working with resin for beginners. We also have 2 yoga-specific retreats, a retreat on grief and loss, art journaling. We're again going to be doing eco-dyeing and cyanotype printing. And then, of course, lots of other yoga teachers will be joining us. So please, when you get a chance, check it out. It's at bigravenfarm.com on the retreats page. So enough about that. Let's talk about today's guest. I have been really excited for her to be here because I've dabbled in this medium. I wouldn't say that I have perfected it, but Darren has. And Darren has actually made me a couple of really beautiful pieces. But let's talk about Rebeca. Rebeca Mojica, she is the owner and visionary behind the Blue Buddha Boutique. She is an award-winning jewelry artist, instructor, and best-selling author. She's known for colorful chainmail pieces, and she is inclusive of the LGBTQIA plus community, which makes our hearts very happy. And as I said, she's the creative force behind Blue Buddha Boutique. So I know you will do an amazing job of welcoming her. Hello, Rebeca.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, and I'm in Minnesota and you're in California, and I would imagine you are having a much different weather day than I am having.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sunny and gorgeous out here. It feels cold to me, but that means it's like in the 60s.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy for you and your experience. That's awesome. No, I'm totally teasing. Thank you so much for being here. And as I mentioned a little bit in my introduction, chainmail. Just an amazing and exquisite art form. I don't know if you heard my last episode. I was telling a story about our oldest son who has always been into all things Renaissance, swords, dragons, princesses, castles, the whole thing. And when he was about 6 years old, he was standing in front of a chainmail artist at a Renaissance festival, just watching her, with her pliers and jump rings, building a beautiful piece of chainmail. And he just stood in front of her and he went, "Oh, you're so beautiful." And and because of that, we've always had this super special place in our hearts for chainmail. So for those folks who might not be familiar with the art form, could you describe it a little bit?
I sure will. And it's actually funny that you bring up Renaissance Fair because that's how I got into chainmail.
Really?
Yeah, I was at a Renaissance Fair and saw people walking around with chainmail belts.
Oh,
So it is chainmail like the medieval knights, the shirts of armor made out of metal mesh. So just linked circles of metal, basically.
and I
Uh,
love it. I love it so much. It's so cool.
mhm.
So, I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, no, yeah. So it's, I mean, historically, it's been around for thousands of years.
Right.
But now, as of, maybe the 70s or so, and then especially 80s, 90s, uh, more and more people started making chainmail jewelry. I
Right.
will add there was a time in Victorian ages, there's like chainmail purses you can find. So very small, dainty metal circles linked together with a little
Mhm,
like sort of
mhm.
purse clasp. Uh, and, over, especially since the Lord of the Rings movie came
Oh,
out, I
sure,
would
sure,
say,
sure.
like all of a sudden there was a lot more interest.
Mhm.
And nowadays artisans work with all sorts of different metals, like anodized aluminum, which comes in colors. They're
Mhm.
dyed anodized niobium and titanium, steel, copper, uh, brass, gold, silver.
Mhm.
So just, there's a huge variety of styles and aesthetics.
Well, and I am so lucky. I have a few pieces. My husband Darren has made them for me, and I've got one of them here for those who can see us. So this is one of my bracelets that Darren made, and I think he just got a pattern, and he's an engineer, so like it made sense in his mind. I think as you look at chainmail, it looks intimidating. And it doesn't look very beginner friendly. What are your thoughts on that?
When I first started doing shows, I remember, and I will say when I first started doing shows at the supplies end, so selling kits and loose jump rings. Jump rings is what the little tiny
Mm.
circles are called. I definitely had a lot of people I'd be at bead shows because that's kind
Yes,
of like a nice chainmail adjacent
yes, that's the
field.
community. Yes,
And people would come by and then almost be like, oh, I'm not there yet. Like, I can't count the
right,
number of times I've heard people say, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm like, what does that
right.
even mean? I'm
Like
like,
I can stitch, I can string, but oh golly, I can weave, but can I chainmail? I can totally see that.
yeah. And I think maybe because it's metal, it's
Mhm,
intimidating. It uses pliers,
mhm.
which maybe people don't use very much.
Sure,
Some beaters definitely use pliers,
right.
usually smaller ones. Um, and yeah, so the way I look at it is, chainmail is, I mean, it's a continuum, a spectrum. So there are definitely pieces that require so much meticulous detail and or
Mhm.
mathematics to like figure out.
That's it
Um,
exactly, Rebecca, it's the
yeah,
math. It looks very mathy to me.
yeah,
Like, I love the pliers, I love the tools, like, I love all of that. I think it's the math and it's the understanding, which one you close and which ones you keep open. But it sounds to me like you have been able to give this a beginner spin or like beginners shouldn't be intimidated.
yeah. I mean, there are definitely projects that when I do make and takes, one of my favorite make and take projects, it's like 6 rings
Okay.
that you wind up, each one gets intertwined. It's similar to, for those who can see, there we go, there's that
Oh
finger
my
ring.
gosh,
Um,
that's
so
awesome.
it's just like a spiral of 7 rings that are all linked together, like a
Okay.
big donut.
Right.
And so that's a very basic pattern that I can start with.
Mhm.
Sometimes earrings that are just 2 rings linked into 2 rings,
Sure, I've seen that one.
2
I've
into
seen the one too where it captures like a pearl or,
right, yeah.
something inside.
Mhm.
So, okay, so you have beginner kits or beginner make and takes. So what about jump rings? What is your opinion on because I've been a beater for a long time. I started first doing the gourd stitch or the peyote stitch,
Mhm.
and then I graduated up to some double needle right angle weave. I've done a lot of herringbone stitch and then, some stringing. And like when I really have like time, I prefer to stitch. I think it's so much more satisfying. And I've tried a couple of chainmail things. It's honestly the jump rings that give me pause. So could you clarify or talk a little bit about your position on jump rings? Do we have to make them ourselves?
Oh, absolutely not.
Thank God, 'cause it's
Um,
so scary, and then they don't turn out great, and then I am frustrated. So what's your philosophy on the stinking jump rings?
yeah, so I mean, I feel like it's a good experience, especially if you're taking like a metal smithing course,
Right?
to just learn how jump rings are made,
Yeah.
which is essentially all jump rings come from wire. So it's like a long spool of wire. You coil it around a mandrel, and then you cut it. And often in metal smithing classes, I mean, you might use wire cutters or you might use a jeweler's saw,
Mhm.
scaling up uh, to if you're doing this on a sort of more bulk level, there are a ton of different machines that you can use so
Right,
that when you cut it, it's just like zip, and
right.
you just go right down the coil.
Because in
Um,
my beginner experience, when I've cut them, the cut makes it like perfect adjacent, right? Like the cut and then it's a little wonky. And then I'm upset.
Yeah, you know, and if that's like for some people, it's really fun and soothing to
Right?
do the coiling and the cutting. It's not my favorite thing. I like to tell people, you know, like I'm a weaver, not a spinner.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there are some people in the chainmail world who are like, "Oh, did you make your own jump rings?" And if your answer is no, you know, they're kind of turn their nose up. And I'm like, whatever. Like,
Come on,
you
crafty
know,
friends.
yeah,
Come
I have so
on.
many friends who crochet or you know do yarn work, and none of them make their own. Well, actually, no, some of them do make their
Right,
own
right.
yarn, but
They know where you're going.
95% of them don't. Right, and
Right.
nobody's like, oh no, you're not, you know, a real crafter because you're not making your own yarn, or you're not a real painter because you're not, you know, making your own, you know, like paints. Uh,
So I think that like I love this conversation in the like within the context of come on friends, let's give each other a little bit of grace and a little bit
yes,
of room. You know, like you're right. I didn't spin my own yarn. I didn't make my own fabric. No, I didn't make my own jump rings, but I still love making chainmail and I'm just as good as you. So, right? So we do have some folks here in the comments. I don't know if you can see it, but you've got Dory saying hello to you and Jody
oh,
saying
there's the
hello to you.
comments. I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
Hi,
and they're just like, "Hey, you're
hi,
awesome. I
Dory.
love you." Well, I have questions too for those of you who are with us live. Has anyone in our comments today given chainmail a go, or have you been interested in it? And if you're driving in your car, go ahead and answer that to yourself because I will pick up on that vibe. Um, so I was going to ask my next question, Rebecca, about, I have seen a decline in the number of people interested in bead stitching or bead weaving. I see more folks, stringing or maybe even using like, stretch magic and those kinds of things. Chainmail. Is there still like a large group of folks interested in this craft, in this, historical artistry? Like, what are you kind of seeing as the trend in chainmail?
Ah, it's a great question. I feel like everything, it does ebb and flow. And every now and then there will be, you know, all of a sudden I'll get an influx of new customers, you know, and maybe somebody shared something on a Facebook group or something else, and everybody's like, "Ooh, what is that?" Or, you know, "Here's a
Right,
tutorial for that."
pretty.
Um, and I certainly have customers who have been with me for like my entire 21 years, which is,
Amazing.
yeah, amazing.
And thank you, friends, right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Um, and you know, so I think it does ebb and flow.
Mhm.
Um, but and there are still surprisingly people who don't know so much what it is,
Right.
but not as much as like when I first started. I would
Mhm.
really have to explain what chainmail is because people would be like, "Oh, I hate those letters," and I'm like, "No, no, no."
I know. Oh, that's so funny. Oh my
Yes,
God, that's
right?
hilarious. I forgot about those.
Uh-huh,
Send this to 10 people if you want.
yes,
Everybody remember that? Like it was chain email too. Like,
uh-huh,
send it to 10 people and luck will be bountiful or something crazy
right.
like that. Oh, that's right. I love that. So it ebbs and flows like any
Mhm.
other art form, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And you've talked about it's certainly beginner friendly. People can get started with a kit, it sounds like. Are those something that we can link in our show notes for how folks can find those?
Oh, for sure. In the Blue Buddha Boutique Etsy shop, that's where I sell kits and instructions. And obviously, you know, Google is your friend.
Mhm.
If you search for how to make chainmail, bazillions of results will come up.
Awesome. And people can actually find you. You will be facilitating sessions, teaching sessions, right?
Mhm.
At Craftcation 2025, which is in Ventura, California, April 23rd through the 27th. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about how they might find you or the best way to get registered for that event?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if I gave you my link
You did.
tree. I
You did.
did. Yeah, okay,
Yes.
yeah. So I have a link tree. I'll make sure to go ahead and add my link for Craftcation there. It might be in the comments here and YouTube too, but
Mhm.
Craftcation, right? It happens in April.
Mhm.
And I'm teaching a few business workshops as well as the box weave, which we've got mail. It's a chainmail company in Minnesota. Actually, they're sponsoring that class, and they're a
Awesome.
really great company with really great supplies. So,
Tell me their name again. We'll be sure to link them in the show notes.
oh sure, it's a cute pun. Weave, as in a Weave.
Okay.
We've got mail, Maille.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. I love that.
very
And
punny.
you're right. Good for you, Minnesota people. So you'll be at Craftcation and you have, is it a, like the code is a, um, I can't remember what it's called, but it, like an affiliate link for
Yeah,
you, maybe?
there's an affiliate link. Yeah, so
Okay.
I'll get a couple bucks if
Okay.
you sign
Awesome.
up and register through my link. So anybody who does that, I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you here live, there are a few fun things in the comments. Dory is saying that she's got a chainmail business and you have been a tremendous inspiration. And she's on the do not make my own rings and has no interest in it. Other folks haven't given it a try just because of the meticulousness of it and maybe some dexterity issues. And then more Jody says that she's a fan, even though she's bad at making it, which I'm sure Jody is probably not true. I would imagine, like anything, it's kind of muscle memory, and there's definitely a learning curve. And I think for me, like in my attempts with chainmail, I think I give up too quick. I think I need to try again. And I also think that I appreciate, Rebecca, that you've given me permission not to make my own rings. I think that was really getting in my way of enjoying it.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, right? Different strokes for different
Yeah.
folks. Like I'm saying, Jody's like, oh, I'm better at crocheting and chainmail. Jody's amazing at crochet, and that's, I think, I know Jody, and like that's
Yeah.
perhaps like her thing. Like not ever, like I started doing chainmail was like, oh my God, this is it, and
Great.
I love to take classes and learn different
Mhm.
techniques. And occasionally I will get, a secondary interest. Like right now I'm really into alcohol inks.
Oh,
So I'm
sure.
like playing around with the colors and doing that and getting obsessed and buying way more things than I possibly need. I think we all know what that's like. Um,
Mhm.
but not everything is for everyone. Like, first of all, we don't have time and space in our life
Mhm.
to take
Sure.
on all of the crafts.
Although
So
we desire, I want to do them all. I haven't met one I haven't really liked yet. It's kind of a problem. But yeah, I'm with you. Like it is definitely different strokes and finding what, fits. And then also too, I think sometimes it's just nice to be given permission, even though we don't need it. Like the validation, I would say, the validation of, make this easier on yourself. And I love your analogy that not everyone spins their own yarn to crochet or knit or whatever. Like we can go ahead and use some uh tools that are already there for us, like pre-made jump rings.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and I have to jump back. So I too dabble in the alcohol ink. And for those of you listening, and Rebecca, maybe you know this little hack, but did you know that you can salvage discarded canvases and use them as a substrate for your alcohol ink if you prime them with house paint?
Fascinating.
Right?
I
Because
did
you
not
are
know that.
turning the canvas into that plasticky, acrylic-y structure that alcohol needs to like not absorb. So I've done a few projects where I have rescued old frames and then painted them with, wall paint, whatever we have laying around. And then it does not absorb the alcohol ink, and you can do really cool things.
Ooh, fun.
Right?
I
Because
will look into that.
sometimes the yucca paper or tiles or, like, whatever you're working with where the alcohol ink will you need a substrate where it won't just, absorb. Yeah, it's a pretty cool hack. I've done a couple of videos on that myself. I'll link them for those who are interested. Okay, so sorry, a little tangent there. So you shared with me earlier that, sometimes you manage something that we call imposter syndrome. Can you, like, what are your thoughts on this?
Wow, do I have thoughts?
Yes, I'd love to hear them. I would love to hear them.
um, yeah, and for those who can't see, I'm actually even wearing a shirt that says Imposter Syndrome Slayer, which is my favorite shirt that I got from Craftcation a few years ago.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
I remember as I was getting it, somebody was like, "Oh, I love that," and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Maybe if I wear it, like it would be good."
If I wear this, I will absorb it.
So, imposter syndrome is something that to some extent I actually feel as though I've had it in various areas of my life, like
Mhm.
biracial imposter syndrome, sexual identity imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome in the traditional sense, and like the business world, is this feeling of like, oh my goodness, I'm a fraud. Everybody's going to find out that I've just been like faking it and I'm not like legit.
Right.
Um, and this is not something. This is something that like Michelle Obama, Maya Angelou, like all of these,
Mhm.
so many people
Thought
struggle
leaders.
with.
Yeah.
And as soon as I found out what imposter syndrome was, probably about like 10 years ago or so, I was like, oh yeah.
Mhm.
And then I kind of didn't really think about it as much
Mhm.
until when I was realizing that the business Blue Buddha Boutique that I'd built up over many years, the business model just wasn't successful, and it wasn't profitable. There were many things about the business that were successful, the culture
Sure.
that we built, I think, but financially, which is what a
Mhm.
business is,
Mhm.
it wasn't happening. And it was at a time in my life where I wound up, moving across the country for love, shutting down my brick and mortar shop in Chicago, transitioning, working with a different company, like just all sorts of like change happening. And then um, I went through a period in my life that was pretty dark, and imposter syndrome really took hold. And what was funny is that it was almost, I say funny, not haha, but
Right.
um,
Now,
like
retrospect, sure.
looking back now,
Mhm.
um, uh, the I was like, oh, it's not even imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome would mean like is somebody who's actually made it. And I'm like, I haven't even made it. Like now I'm like, like I just felt like I was just like back to square one,
Mhm.
with nothing. And I was also going through a period of depression, and depression plus imposter syndrome, bad
Mhm.
combination. Do not recommend.
Right.
And I described it to a friend as it's as if the entire um, comment section of the internet like
Mhm.
just took up residence in my brain.
Right.
And I don't mean like the beautiful, lovely comments we have right
Right.
now.
Of course.
I mean like the troll comments.
Of course.
And I don't. Fun fact about me: I don't get earworms. So when you get a song stuck in your head for days,
That's
like
awesome.
I shouldn't say I don't get them. I had one back in like 2016, 2017.
I get them every day, so I'm quite envious of that. Like,
Yes, I
every
don't get them, but I
Mhm.
get speech earworms, and I don't know if there's a different word, like, for that, like, if there's something in a television show or an
Sure.
audiobook that I've
The
listened to, like,
phrase,
I
right.
just hear this phrase, like, over and
Mhm.
over and
Mhm.
over again, but never to music. But anyway, so that's what was, like, happening in my head, were just these
Sure.
voices, that were
Mhm.
constantly I was my own worst enemy, just, like,
Yeah.
dragging myself down and being like, "Oh, who am I?" And, I needed to, like, get off of social media even, because 'cause I'm like, I can't even, like, see what other people are doing, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, no, look at all of these people making all of these chainmail things, and I'm doing nothing."
Mhm.
Realizing that, like, of course I can't make all of the things in the world, like, and some of those things aren't even things I wanna make. Why am I, like yeah, so it was a dark period, and it was
Right.
also the pandemic was happening. I was also going through menopause, which I was expecting hot flashes, had no idea it would be this whole, it is a hormonal thing.
It's very
Um,
surprising, isn't it?
yeah.
Like, I wish somebody would have given me a little, like, heads up that that lasts 10 years, or whatever. Like, I had no idea. I thought it was like, meh, couple months and we'll be on the other side of this. So I was very, very surprised to know that it can last a decade. Like, that's BS. But anyway, how did you then slay the imposter syndrome?
I'm continuing to slay.
Okay, so
You
it
know,
sounds like it's not like a battlefield that you win. It's more like it sounds like something that you can it's like a really long golf game that doesn't end, right? You're always trying to improve it,
yes, yeah,
right?
yeah, and and I think I mean, it can be similar to, I'm guessing like someone who's a recovering addict,
Mm-hmm.
who it's like, sure, 20 years sober, um, but there's still that like part of the brain
Mm-hmm.
that is like, yeah, that's just,
Yeah.
it's always there.
Yep.
Um, but I think, some of the things that worked for me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and these are kits, these are all like tools that I have in my toolbox that I use and pull out. The first thing that I started to do was actually to just say no. And I
Mm,
don't mean like saying no to requests. I mean saying no to myself. Like as soon as
sure.
I noticed that voice was going on in my head, about
Mhm.
whatever it was, I would just be like,
Yes.
no. I would say it out loud.
To silence that little demon.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I'm a very kinesthetic person, and
Mm-hmm.
so even like just standing up as I say no, just to kind of like reset and just be like no, and then as soon as the voice starts saying it, no, uh, and then coming up with different mantras, so either nonsensical mantras or more of like a positive affirmation type
Sure.
thing, so that I can just use that kind of like almost like as a bat to like beat down the voice.
It's like whack-a-mole,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just like, "Oh, here comes one."
Uh,
And Jody too, in our comments too, is saying, it's like it's you have to slay it every time.
yeah.
And like there's no cure. I think there's just ways that we cope or slay in the moment. And some of the things that you're saying with, affirmations or mantras, I think too, for some of us might even be perspective shifts or for me when it happens, I don't know if it's I mean I am a Gen Xer, and so I have like unparalleled drive. I am driven, and I think that like the best wake up call for me, or how I've learned the most about this drive, that I can't quench it. I can't, like, no matter how successful, unsuccessful I am, the drive remains the same in that I am never satisfied and I will always chase and chase and chase, right? And it's been my children who are the world's best Gen Zers who look at me and they're like, "You don't stop, mom. Like, you don't like, you're relentless. Like, why can't you just sit and rot like on a couch like they do sometimes?" And the only answer that I have is I think that environmentally and culturally, this is who I am. Right. And
Mhm.
I think that, instead of feeling bad about this inability to kind of rest in what I have, I've just kind of learned to embrace it, that that's what I do. I drive, and I don't think it's bad, and I don't think I can turn it off. But I do need to have that perspective when it comes to like the imposter syndrome in the comparison analysis of I have this, I don't have that. I think that's for me where it gets unhealthy.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I see that. And like the having a drive is like, I mean, it is a core part of who you are,
Right.
and I think, yeah, the important thing is to really enjoy the journey. And if that is the like, oh, I'm enjoying the journey of like where this drive, uh, not necessarily like where it's taking me, but just the route that
Right.
I'm
I'm
at,
on it, right? The
you
road.
know? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And
Well, please go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to add, yeah. And one other thing that I did, for me, that was very helpful, because with imposter syndrome and
Mhm.
depression, both the world shrinks and becomes very small,
True.
and it is, you were very focused inward, and so I regularly, I mean, I do meditate, which is
Mhm.
very helpful, and some of the meditation I do is definitely not traditional, meditation, but a lot of what I consider part of my practice is taking time to really uh, experience and bond with the natural world.
Sure.
And so I know I know the benefits of like taking a walk in nature. I'm in the middle of Los Angeles, and as much as I would love to like be out in trees and forests, and I think the reason why that's so helpful, especially for creatives, is because
Yeah.
you are freed from very stark cubed shaped
Mhm.
lines that we experience being indoors, and you're seeing fractals in trees and leaves and plants and just these very intricate designs.
Mhm.
And and I don't have that, but what I do have, I have a great view. I'm on the fourth floor, and most of the homes around me are like two-story apartment buildings. So I can see the moon. And so it's really nice to be like, oh, this is not a human like construct. I can like watch the moon. I can greet it, when it comes up
Right.
before my bedtime and see it. I can talk to like the trees that I can see the treetops,
Yep.
and just take a moment to sort of feel a world that is bigger than I am.
Mhm.
And that is incredibly like peaceful and grounding. And it's something that I think society as a whole, our Western society has kind of lost.
I agree with you. And, it's funny you should say alternative like ways to meditate. I actually just facilitated 2 classes last week for healthcare providers here in Minnesota. And one of the, so, I've practiced yoga now for 22 years. And I think I've been a teacher for 13 or 14, kind of lose track, but, and I have never really felt that I like achieved that gold ring of, combining a meditation practice in with my yoga practice. It has never been accessible to me, no matter how hard I try in this drive, right? Like to be the best at at the things I try. I'm like, I'm not a very good yoga practitioner because I can't meditate. And I was really hard on myself until I accidentally figured out that there are mechanisms of my art practice that are very meditative. And so in my presentation last week, I was using the art of book folding as a tool to help people achieve this kind of your muscles take over and it gives your mind a chance to relax. And so just the repetitive nature of, 3D book sculpture, people are able to at least experience a little bit of what this meditative state feels like or flow. Artists and yoga teachers talk about it all the time. And just how sometimes, because this idea or notion of I'm going to turn off my brain and think about nothing, and that's meditating. Well, that's just kind of ridiculous because that isn't really an achievable thing. And for me, I think that the idea and the methodology of meditating just didn't feel accessible to me until I figured out that for me, I have to connect it to my hands. And if my hands are busy, then my mind is quiet. And it's amazing the things that pop up in that practice.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think it also, yeah, once again, just sort of goes to show that whole like different strokes for different
Yep,
folks.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So as we solve the world's problems, what are you working on right now? Like what's on your work table? What are you doing in your crafty artsy space?
So crafty artsy space. I'm gearing up for the holidays.
Okay.
Um, so right now I'm actually uh, I would be like, I'm not doing too much exciting. And what I mean by that is I'm actually a little bit behind on like my production pieces.
Oh, sure.
So over the past couple of years, I started doing more wholesale,
Mm,
which is exciting. So, but my work is sold in about 2 dozen stores across the United States.
okay.
So that's great. And then every now and then, when I get a few orders, that came in like before the holiday season, I'm like,
Yes.
oh, okay, now I have to like
Right.
restock. So I have stuff to sell, to consumers. So I'm catching up on those. And the next big project that I want to start working on, and I've just started mapping it out because I'm not 100% sure
I love
exactly how it's going to work
I
out.
love
Yeah.
the sounds you're making because
Like,
it feels like home, Rebecca. Like like I get this. I totally get this.
because I'm like, I know what I want to do, and I know like where I want to like hang it
Yep.
up in my in my living room. So, because it's going to be like 16 feet long, but very
Nice.
skinny. But it's a timeline of the Earth.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
so it's combining my love for science with chainmail. And essentially just giving me a visual representation so that I can just kind of like look up and contemplate, like, okay, so, 4.5-ish billion years ago is
Mm-hmm.
when the Earth was formed, and then there was like nothing really happening except for I don't know, like rocks raining down on the Earth, or for this period of time. Here's when bacteria emerged. Here's when fungus
And you're
emerged.
going to represent this in metal. Into
Yeah, I mean, just mostly like by changing the weave, or there's like 5 major
so
extinction
cool.
events, and just visualizing them. And what I think is really fascinating, right, is because it's going to be, like I said, about 16 feet long,
Mm-hmm.
and at the very end, a very tiny jump ring that is like 1/16 of an inch, and that's actually going to be an overrepresentation of modern humanity, basically, Homo
This
sapiens. This
sounds
is
awesome.
this is all we've been around for compared to like the rest.
I love this. I hope you'll somehow like take us all along with you on this journey because I would love to see that. And like I feel, like I said, I feel at home with the way you're describing this because like I too, so what's on my work table is a vision. And I haven't quite got it all sorted out yet, but I know what I want to do because I was just this past weekend at my local restore. So the Habitat for Humanity store in my community. And I happened upon, wait for it, it's amazing, cabinet fronts, and they're all wood, but they are 6 feet tall and about 3 feet wide. And it looks like, I mean, it's solid wood and it's framed, and they must have measured wrong. I don't know what they did, but I got them for $2. And I got
Whoa.
yeah, and I spent $18, so I got 8 of them. And so a couple of ideas that I have is I have a project called Warp Speed, and Warp Speed is made with recycled magazine tubes, and I make the tubes and then I flatten them and then I find the center of the substrate, and then all of the magazine tubes go out in a radius. And so when you stand there looking at it, it looks like you're like, Star Warsing right into the
Ooh.
middle of the vortex. So, and I was thinking that maybe this time, instead of being, just haphazard with where my paper tubes go, I might try to coordinate them by color, and have it be a little bit more visually interesting with the movement of the color as well as this like vortexy idea. So I have, as they say,
Ooh.
concepts of a plan,
Amazing. Right.
and I acknowledge that. But I'm really excited about it. And I'm so excited about these cabinet faces. And the nice people at Restore told me that the first Thursday of the month, and this is if you're in my listening area, this was in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So the first Thursday of the month, this local cabinet making company, they bring in their goofs, I guess. And I was with my husband and he was like, could you imagine that many goofs? I mean, I can't because they're all full hardwood. They're just beautiful. And I love that store so much. I love the day when I can find like a great big bag of widgets. Who knows what they are, but I just want to put them in a sculpture or like, do something with them. I love that place so much. But that's what's on my work table. And, for those of you who follow me, more to come on that, but that's where I'm headed. So, okay. Well, so let me go back to people can find you at Craftcation. That's coming up April. Surprisingly, is not that far away. Oh my gosh. I will be sure to link all of that in our show notes, along with Rebecca's affiliate, where she can get a couple bucks if you register, which of course we are happy to do and support. I will also link to your Etsy store. I'll link to the Minnesota Weaving
We've
Mail.
got mail.
We've got mail. We've got mail because they sound awesome. And then now we're to kind of everybody's favorite part of the Happy Time Craftcast, which is a series of words. I ask everybody the same questions. You can answer with one word. You can elaborate, like whatever you want to do. Just gives us a chance to get to know you better. And the first one is Rebecca, what is your favorite word?
So the caveat that I'm gonna put on all of this, right, is like, yeah, I don't necessarily have a favorite anything
Sure,
mostly.
sure, sure.
So I'm gonna steal the favorite word from a friend of mine, which is P-synonym. Since that is the synonym of synonym, and like how ridiculous is it that there's a word for that? But
Oh my gosh. Okay, say it again.
P-synonym, it's like P-O-E.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's like you just won the Happy Time Craftcast like Olympic champion round there. Like that's so cool. I love that so much. Because I was gonna say for me too, like my favorite word's jump. Like it could be daily or weekly, like I don't ever have one like for sure. But I think right now, like seasonally, we have 4 children and they're all grown up. And as people do, the traders moved away and are like living their own lives. Dang them. But I'm missing them so much. And I kind of have this like nostalgic, like I've been looking at family photos lately and I've been like, I wish they would come home more. So I have like a romantic, nostalgic thing in my heart. Like I don't know what that one word is, but it's connected to our children. So I don't know what that is, but that's what I'm doing. So then with that, do you have a least favorite word?
Of course, I don't have a least favorite word.
Hmm.
And like, I guess if I were to think about it, I mean, probably I would, there's some like not safe for work words.
Oh,
So I will not say those. But also I think, I don't know, I guess words that like hate, like just words
yeah.
with really negative connotations.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like I have phrases where overused phrases that people tend to use, and it just kind of makes my shoulders go up. And it would be things like when people say it is what it is. Like I just want to because I don't understand that. Like I don't know what that means. And I want you to say it different.
That's a trigger phrase for a lot of
Yes.
people, but yeah.
It gets me every time. I just oh. Anyway, I sound like an angry old lady. Okay, what is the best kind of sandwich? This is a very important question. Like take your time, think about it.
So I don't eat gluten, dairy, mammals, or birds.
Okay.
So most sandwiches are not my friend.
Oh,
Um,
sure. Because I
you
have
know,
eaten those things.
yeah, right. There is, so I'll just do a plug for the Jibarito sandwich, because
Okay.
that's a Chicago, Puerto Rican thing. Chicago is where I spent, the first 40 years of my life.
Yeah.
Um, and it's expanded beyond Chicago, but it was, founded like around the corner from my home.
Yeah.
And it's in Puerto Rico, we eat a lot of plantains.
Yeah.
So like, it's not a green banana, but there are different ways of preparing the plantains, like when they're riper.
Mhm.
Here you take one that is not ripe, and so it's more like potatoy almost, or like it
And
doesn't
that's
have a
like the
sweet
is that like the
flavor.
bread the bread portion?
That's the sandwich, yeah.
Okay, okay.
And then there's garlic mayo, which you can like. I do vegan version of that. And then lettuce, tomato, and then usually there's meat of some animal on it. But I can
Thankfully
use
not
fake
meat
meat.
of a person, but
Yeah,
yes, meat of an animal. Okay.
I can use fake meat occasionally. I still eat some seafood, so like shrimp is,
Sure.
garlic shrimp is amazing on that.
Mm. And tell us the name one more time.
Jibarito, with a
Burrito.
J. Yeah.
Nice. I think you're gonna I usually say ice cream sandwich is probably the best kind of sandwich. I grew up with my parents owning a Dairy Queen, and so one of the things that we would do is embellish and modify said ice cream sandwich by like rolling it in sprinkles or rolling it in sprinkles and then like dipping it in chocolate or like
Nice.
just totally messing with the very nature of said ice cream sandwich. So I think I have like core memories growing up because I was the youngest one working at my parents' Dairy Queen. They were all like older high school girls that I loved and idolized. I'm sure I drove them crazy, but because I was like in I don't know 6th grade or something. but I have really good memories of making those ice cream sandwiches at my parents' Dairy Queen. Okay, so here's like, so coming back to kind of like our core conversation today, and like, what does it mean, like being an artist? Like, what does that mean to you?
I think being an artist means creating.
Hmm.
Um, you
And
know,
how does it like, how does it feel on your skin? Like, how do you feel that you are an artist?
uh, hmm. So, I mean, being an artist to me is, it feels like exhilarating. It's
Right.
wonderful to express oneself. And I actually just posted a TikTok slash reel about this yesterday from uh, Rick Rubin's book, The
Mhm,
Creative Act, A Way of Being. And
mhm.
I really liked he has like sort of a definition of, craftsman versus artist.
Yeah.
And I really liked this definition. It spoke to me of,
Mhm,
a craftsperson is, when you know what you want to do and then you make it, that's a craftsperson.
mhm,
Whereas when you start with a question and use that to guide a journey of exploration,
mhm.
that's an artist.
I love
Um,
that.
and
Mhm.
I may be slightly misquoting, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we get
that's the essential. So I love that idea of like starting with a question and just,
mhm.
sort of going from there.
Yeah, kinda like your project, right? Like your,
Mhm.
timeline of the
Of the
Earth, universe,
world,
yeah,
the
like
world. I might do
the
the
world.
universe later, but that's,
Okay.
they just added like 20 billion years to that or
Right,
something.
to the
So it's like,
project, just gotta
yeah.
love. Like, I can see where, right, like, you're starting with a question, and then you are like, I love that, the backdrop of that analogy and how that
Mhm.
helps some of us because, I think that just like, did you make your own jump rings and did you make your own yarn? I think that artists and crafters have or even maybe not so much craftsmanship, but, like, there's a little bit of a push-pull in there of, "What am I? Am I this or am I that?" And, is one better than the other? And personally, of course not. I don't think so. But I feel like, in my own experience, it took me a long time to be able to say that I was an artist. I used to just say I'm a maker. Like I just make stuff. And and I thought that I couldn't claim artist because the things that I make are usually made from garbage, and it's not that hard, right? So I had this whole idea and this whole notion because it's not hard and because the materials that I use, it therefore cannot be an art form. And it wasn't until one of my friends was standing in my house and she was like, I just kind of think you're dumb. And I was like, okay, tell me more about that. And she was like, you always talk about how this isn't hard. And I think what you're missing is it isn't hard for you, Jolene. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
That was like really interesting and really great feedback because I feel like once I was able to put on my like I make most of my decisions based on my artist's way or intuition or guiding force. And like I just finally feel at home with, yeah, I am an artist in all possible ways and it fits me good and I'm crafty and I make stuff.
Yeah.
Like all the things. All the things. All right. So is there then a sound or a noise that you love?
My cat purring.
Oh,
And I'm also, uh, v- I don't know, I'm very much into like ASMR.
oh yeah.
So
And
just
like
like
the shivers from some of
things
it
like,
and
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So like things like, that
Yeah.
that's on my tea mug or, uh, yeah, I'm constantly doing that. I told my studio, I was like, you listen to too many like ASMR videos when you like pick everything you pick up. You're like,
I think that, like, the first time I saw, like, one of those maybe on TikTok or something, I really was w wondering what I was watching, you know? I was like, "What? What is this?" And then you watch a little bit and you're like, "Oh, I get it now. Okay, that's cool. That's cool." I'm gonna say, uh I'm going to piggyback off the pet thing. Our dog Augie is like the highlight of when people come to visit Big Raven Farm. Like he is the ambassador. He is the welcome crew. Like he takes his job very seriously. And everybody who comes to Big Raven Farm loves Augie. Like loves him. He doesn't even really know he's a dog. He's kind of like person adjacent, in that he doesn't bark and he doesn't jump and he doesn't like do any like dog type things. Like, in fact, if I had to like stretch my memory as to the last time he barked, it was probably 2 months ago. Like
Oh, wow.
he just doesn't. That's just not his love language. But he does make funny noises when he dreams. And I
Oh,
love that. I love that so
yeah.
much. And I love him. He knows I'm talking about him. His ears just pricked up. But I think that, and I want to say too that sometimes people who don't love animals, I don't understand them. I know that's really judgy, but like I just don't get it because I love them so much. And I couldn't imagine not having like that kind of, maybe it's experience, right? Maybe they just don't have the experience and I should be nice. Let me think and talk at the same time. I'm not really sure about that. Okay. Is there a sound or a noise then that you don't like?
Uh, yeah, there's probably a lot of sounds
Mm.
that annoy me, but specifically, I mean, since the pandemic, it's basically been nonstop construction in some way
Mm.
or another around me. And like I said, I'm on the fourth floor and most of the
Yeah.
buildings are lower. So all of this noise, even if something is like 2 blocks
Mhm.
away, it feels like it's like, just like right next
Right,
door.
those constant, right, the
Yeah.
ones that don't relent. I
Hmm.
totally agree with you. I have a new one, and I don't think that Darren is listening to this episode, so I'm going to go ahead and say it because he should be listening to my podcast. But we were playing Scrabble the other day, and he was eating pita chips while tapping his fingers on the table during my turn. I don't know, fam. What do we think? Like, I think that is cause for like some kind of intervention because the pizza chips and the finger tapping during my turn, I feel like it was like a tactic, and I didn't like it. I guess I'm showing how petty I can be. All right. Is there a profession other than your own that you would like to attempt?
I mean, theoretical physicist sounds pretty
Hmm.
cool. I don't know that I want to go through all the schooling necessary.
Mhm.
Um, and I actually, I mean, I don't really want to attempt right now another one, but some of the
Sure.
things that do fascinate me, or for that maybe I would. Like, I love teaching,
Mhm.
particularly uh, like job training,
Sure.
leadership training, uh, sort of coaching. So, yeah, something along those lines,
Mhm.
or working with my hands, still something adjacent to
Mhm.
that. So, uh, electrician, chef,
Oh,
those are
yeah.
all, yeah.
Yeah, I've always, and I say it every time, I've always had welder on my list. Like,
Yes.
right? Like, I would love to like weld something. And like, I have a good friend on TikTok, Tam I am is her handle. And she makes like memorial pieces out of people's metal. So, like, let's say,
Oh, wow.
somebody special in your life had a big collection of tools, you would send them to Tam, and then she would build them into a memorial piece, like a heart or a fish or whatever kind of sculpture like represents your loved one. And I just am fascinated with her work. I'm fascinated with like how she stores all these wrenches and bolts, and like it's just so cool. And I watch and I'm like, I wish I could do that. But at the same time, I am wildly accident prone. And that just seems like a
Uh-huh.
really bad idea. But I fantasize about it. Like the whole helmet and the whole thing, like I love it all. I think it's so awesome. Working with hands and creative, I love it.
Mhm.
Is there a profession that you would like, would not want to do that?
So I don't have a driver's license. I've never actually had one. So I
Mhm.
don't want to do anything that involves like driving a bus or a truck. And I'm pretty sure the rest of the world probably would not want me to do that either.
You're like, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. You just stay in your lane.
Yeah.
You stay in your lane,
Stay in
literally.
my bike lane with my helmet.
That's awesome. I'm gonna say that I don't know in this particular era, I don't know that I could maybe be like a teacher in a school. I feel like I have so many teacher
Mhm.
friends that like count the days until the year is over. And I just feel like we got a little bit of a broken situation going on there. And I admire how so many still go to work with love in their heart and take good care of, our little people in this world when like so much is being asked of them. I think it just sounds really hard.
Mhm.
So yeah, that one for me. Is there anything that you could like encapsulate, pinpoint, point to, like what brings you like the most happiness? What fills up your cup the most?
I would say um, uh, being with loved ones, doing something that we all enjoy together.
Mhm,
Whether that is like a walk uh,
mhm,
in nature or just laughing, figuring things out together. I love doing escape rooms, and that seems very small, being like, you
no.
know, or yeah, specific, but really just, um, and I think that what I'm getting at with like the loved ones and doing things that I
Mhm,
love is that those are the moments where I feel like free to be me.
mhm,
And I don't feel like I'm trying to like assess the situation and figure out like what am I supposed to be doing or
right.
like what's going on here? Like when there are fewer unknowns and it's just sort of like, I can just relax and like
Mhm.
be me and not be judged, and we'll just talk and laugh and love and enjoy life.
I totally agree with you, and I would just add that, like, experiences to me over things, bring me like, I can't think of a thing, like a material
Mhm.
thing that I want that I think, like, equals any kind of happiness other than maybe a refrigerator that's more quiet, because ours is really noisy, but but I think that, like, experiences with my people are like the things that I look forward to the most and like hold the deepest capacity for the greatest happiness. And like I said, I've been feeling nostalgic and I'm romanticizing memories lately, and I think it's seasonal, right? Like I'm just ready for everyone to come home and be under the same roof, so that I can get my little cup filled back up. Because Rebecca, they're amazing. They're amazing people that I have. I got really lucky, so I hit the lucky branch all the way to the ground. So, anyway, thank you. Oh my gosh, so much for being with me today. And I just want to like bring you back over before we say goodbye to the comments. There are so many people here that love you, that they love your classes and they wish that you were closer, and that you're an amazing teacher and a beautiful soul. Thank you, everyone, for sending all of those messages to Rebecca. I love that so much about our interactive part of the Happy Time Craftcast. So thank you for doing that. And like I said, with Rebecca, we will link everything in our show notes so that you are able to find her again later. And Rebecca, thank you. Thank you so, so much. Like the hour went by so fast, and I'm so grateful to have met you, and I hope to keep you in my circle.
Yeah, it just flew by. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us and for your comments.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next time. We'll be back on
Happy
uh,
crafting.
Happy Crafting. I'll see you on Wednesday, November 27th. Have great days, everybody. Bye bye.